I was hoping to go shooting today and lob a few arrows around, but it's too wet. So I've been doing a bit more on this scruffy billet bow. It's getting there. I used a bandsaw to trim a little bit where it was very thick. But it's quite interesting here, the shape of this billet dipping down needed matching up to this, so I ended up shaping and putting a sliver of sapwood on the back. It's quite a big chunk really. That's meant I've had to remove quite a lot here. I'm going to leave it fairly thick and non-bending in the grip, but this is interesting. Where I've been trying to reduce the width and take this out, it's just digging in here, and you can see that's in danger of tearing in quite deep. So I've reversed it on the shape horse, and I'll cut this way now, so I'll work in towards the knot from either end, but I want to probably get most of that out, or virtually all of it. Sometimes it's quite nice if you just have the sort of remnants left, just a sort of dark stain of where the knot was. It just can make a nice feature, and also you can leave it where the grain is flowing around the knot. So I'll try and treat it with sympathy, but that's been reduced quite a bit. I've tidied up the sapwood. You can see I've got quite close to that line. It's going to be interesting with that heavy reflex at one end. That will probably be the lower limb, but it really throws the eye here where the heartwood dips in. It makes the bow look narrow, but in actual fact it's not. It's one of those optical illusions. But yeah, a lot of wood to come off yet. I've given it a bit of a flex. We've still got a bit of a gap there where it needs the width reducing, or I could patch something in. If I'm going to leave it as a thick non-bending handle, I could patch something in, or could even cut it away and have an arrow shelf in the style of a American longbow, or AFB, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, there's the cat. She's been fussing around because she doesn't want to go out in the rain, and I think she thinks it might not be raining out the front of the house, even though it's raining out the back. So I'll pop the door open and let her out. It's raining out that side as well, Puss. Are you just going to sit there? Now I just gave the bow a bit of a flex on the floor. You know, one end against the floor, holding the other end and pushing against the middle, floor tillering as they call it, and it didn't look quite right, and then I thought, I've made the fatal mistake of assuming the middle's in the centre and the splice is in the middle. Who's to say the billets were of equal length when I glued it up? So I just measured. That's the actual centre, there's the centre, and there's the splice. So you can see there's a significant difference. So the implication of that is that if I want to keep any length to the bow, I need to have the grip on the splice and the arrow path just above it, which would be, so if we look at it, let's just draw this for you a bit more so you can see it. There's the splice. So it's quite a short splice, just the size of my hand, so that will be the grip. Arrow path 1 inch above the grip, so the arrow path is going to be at roughly at the geometric centre. Well, that's not what you want. What you really want is the geometric centre to be there. So if I measure an equal distance from there in each direction, and I can mark out now where the bow should be, but that's going to mean losing a little bit off one limb. And it's easy to get confused here, so let's just actually measure it. So in conventional terms that would give us a 38-inch lower limb and a 41-inch upper limb, which is hideous basically. But there's an advantage to this. If I say, right, it's a 38-inch lower and I make the upper the same, it means we'll lose some length off the scruffy, thin, narrow upper limb. Bearing in mind it's tapered, if you lose a couple of inches off the thin end of a tapered thing, it makes it effectively wider at the tip and look not so thin and scruffy. So let's do that with a pencil and then remeasure the whole thing, see how it looks, because as I always say, you can't do too much harm with a pencil. Right, I've just looked at that, and if I saw that much off the end, we lose this ugly knot, which is quite handy, and it also actually gives me a tiny bit of extra width at the tip, which is no bad thing. So I'm quite happy to do that, and it will give us an overall length. That gives us two 38-inch limbs, which is 2, 8, 16, 2, 3, 6, 27, 76-inch overall length, which isn't too bad. Yeah, so I'll just saw that bit off there, and that will make the middle somewhere nearer the middle. It will get rid of that knot and things will be wonderful. Now the wood by this knot that I was talking about, it didn't want to cut cleanly, even approaching from this direction. So I didn't persevere and rip it all out. I went over to the rasp, and I couldn't resist just taking it off fairly smooth and just picking out some of that black, so you could see how it might look. It'll probably come down further than that, but you can see that's got the potential to be a nice feature. Something I use for picking out that sort of thing is a chainsaw file, and all I've done is I've ground the end on a belt sander, actually, just at an angle like that, and that makes a really nice scraper just for pushing out the meow. Yes, you can see how Emily Cat pays a great deal of attention to all my bow making activities. She's going to become the world's most skilled cat bowyer, but unfortunately, due to her lack of opposing thumbs, she's severely handicapped in that department. Alright, I've done a fair bit more. You can see I've reduced the thickness here. That'll be the lower limb, so below the grip, below the splice, I've dived it in what people would call the fade, where it fades into the working limb. That's a bit slimmer. Similarly on the upper limb, but it's trying to split out here where the centre of the stave or stick or log, whatever you want to call it, is. So I'll maybe have to reappraise the poundage I get out of it on this trickier limb, but the only way to tell will be that first time on the tiller. And I think we're nearly ready for that, because I've got a reasonable you know, taper on the limb. That's looking quite pretty down there. So what I'll do is I'll cut in some temporary nocks, just get it on the tiller, have a little look at it, because it's already evolving. It's evolved such that I know the pretty better quality, slightly reflexed limb, that's going to be the bottom limb. Scruffy ones at the top. Really, it's a matter of how much poundage can I get out of it, or do I want to. I mean, I've had bows break. They never break, you know, you're trying to get to 28-inch draw. They always break at 27.5. They never break at 10 or 20. So it'd be a shame to put in a lot of work here trying to get to 80 pounds and then find it explodes on the tiller. Maybe I'd be sensible to go for 40, 50. I don't know. We'll have a look on the tiller, see how it looks, see how it feels. Won't we, Puss? Meow, yeah. We'll do that. Defo. Just a little shufty before I do the grooves. This is one of those grit rods. you know, used for sawing tiles, and I couldn't find a decent frame to put it in. So this is a really horrible cheap frame that's designed for a longer blade, and I just sawed it in half, put a bit of scrap metal in there and taped it round, but I could never get the damn thing tight enough. It always bound up and it was horrible. And then all I did is I put an extra washer on there, a tiny bit of grease. All of a sudden I can tighten it up and get that lovely and taut now, and it's much nicer for cutting the grooves. So that's what I use quite a lot, that and a needle file, chainsaw file and what have you. But I know a lot of people have got this sort of frame and they're a pig, they just don't tighten up. Extra washer, tiny touch of grease, job's a good one. Well, this is the scruffy Yew Billet Bow. It's got some interesting features on it. This is literally the first time on the tiller, so it may be quite unbalanced. I expect that limb will be stiffer, but I'll be able to have a look, see what it's like. Another thing that's not much interest is I've recently put some new light bulbs in everywhere, so I've got some LED lighting, except I think it's warm white, whereas I think cool white gives a better colour, but it'll be interesting to see how it looks on the video. I've got the garage door shut, so there's no daylight in here really. Anyhow, enough blethering, let's have a quick shufty. Not really sure what draw weight I'm after for this, because I don't know how it's going to look, but I'm after, oh that's interesting. That looks reasonably even. Yeah, I'm going for a sort of stiff handle design because it's spliced. Not only is it spliced, it was patched on the back due to the shape of the stave. That funny line of heartwood really throws your eye. I mean, it's my usual thing. It's moving near the middle fairly nicely. They're £60 and the outers are stiff, so that looks quite promising. I mean, maybe go for about 60. Originally I was thinking of 80, but 60 looks more realistic. Yeah, it looks like it's moving there and there, which is fine. I don't want the handle to move at all, so I'll probably start moving out. But this area is interesting and looks thick. It's funny because it looks really thick there and thin there due to the heartwood being much thinner there, but that's not too bad. I'll cobble that together as a video and give you all something to look at.